Hello and welcome to the Joe Ligato Show. I'm your host, Dr. Joe Ligato, and today we're going to be talking about the Vladimir Putin speech given at the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, and we're going to be analyzing and providing commentary on this speech because Vladimir Putin is helping to decide the direction of the world, and all available evidence is showing that we are heading to a multipolar world. So let's dive right into it.
Russia, both for emerging businesses and mature businesses, have to be globally competitive. As I said during my address to the Federal Assembly, the business...
Okay, so we're starting off strong talking about the business climate in Russia and how the government's job is to foster strong domestic businesses and then help support them while they compete internationally. And the thing is, the United States likes to say, oh, no, you can't do that. But the United States absolutely does do that for its own businesses, its own mega corporations. And so the fact that places like Russia, like China, are going out of their way to support and foster their own domestic industries, that makes America extremely mad. But the role of a government, in my perspective, is to serve as sort of the gardener for the nation's ecosystem. They are pruning branches that are growing in weird directions. They are making sure to cultivate growth in directions that matter. They're the gardeners of the ecosystem. And so Russia's doing that right now. They're making sure to cultivate good domestic growth, and then they're helping to foster that growth to compete internationally. I don't know how my gardener and ecosystem example works with the international part of that, but just pretend like it works, all right?
Business and key industries and sectors and the management sectors have to be in the Russian jurisdictions. Of course, each and every business person has the indivisible right to decide how to use the profits. This is the driver of entrepreneurial activities. This is the reason behind any business. But there are situations when money is made in Russia and then is moved to foreign accounts, and this carries obvious unacceptable risks to the Russian businesses themselves. Many business people have felt that and have this first-hand experience because, to their astonishment, they saw their assets in the West frozen. And
okay, so interesting things to comment on here. One is the fact that Vladimir Putin, after everything that happened with Boris Yeltsin, he has to have some type of like PTSD related to, and I know I'm using that term a little bit too lightly, but PTSD related to the fact, well, maybe I'm not using it too lightly since, anyways, I'm just going to say the rest of what I was going to say. PTSD related to the fact that so much of the wealth of Russia was pillaged and was taken out of Russia, and it had horrific results for Russia. And so he's remembering back and saying, these corporations under my rule, they're not allowed to just send their profit abroad. And then, so not only is there a pull factor, we'll say push and pull for the sake of this example. I heard about it in some other research domains, but we'll use push and pull here. Not only are there some pull factors in the sense of Russia saying you're not allowed to hold your money abroad, it's detrimental for Russia and the Russian people, but there's also some push factors convincing these companies to hold their money in Russia instead of the West, which is that, as he's saying here, the West froze their assets whenever the war happened. So their assets weren't safe in the West. And not only Russian companies, but companies and governments around the world have to take note of that. They have to recognize that their money isn't safe in the West. Okay? And they are taking note of that. And Vladimir Putin is making it very clear here, you can't trust the West anymore. So not only are there the pull factors of, hey, Vladimir Putin's coming to get you personally if you try to store your money outside of Russia, but also you have to be careful because the West isn't trustworthy, which they've shown time and time again.
It would never have occurred to anyone in the past because this happened in violation of all domestic and international norms. So it's just robbery Square and simple. They don't want to talk about that. This is as if we moved back to the medieval times. But there is a very good adage in our country. You have to be of good use where you were born. And that is why I appeal to the business community. Work here, invest your money here, then the profits are going to be bigger. The money is going to work actively in the country, and the economy, and the social field. It'll be for the benefit of our citizens. This will be a very good use to your country, and moreover, it's going to be more reliable. Right now, there are many Russian assets registered to foreign companies. The owners are Russian citizens, and they want to get back to the Russian jurisdiction. And it is for their benefit that we have launched 2 special administrative areas in Primorsky Krai and in Kaliningrad region. Here, the companies can protect their assets, keep the usual system of corporate management, and they can also resort to a number of tax preferences. And I know that not everyone has taken advantage of this opportunity. There are different reasons. Some couldn't get the legal or accounting services abroad, and some cases there is unwillingness and reluctance on the foreign partners' side to provide the necessary documents or information. So this is sabotage. They don't want to release our assets and our entrepreneurs. So I would like to ask the government to work with the business community to accelerate the return of Russian assets in key industries to the Russian jurisdiction. In particular, the procedure should be facilitated for transferring business from other countries to Russia and to special administrative areas, especially in those cases when such a transfer is blocked by the foreign side, and sometimes it's just not stipulated in their legislation, and this has to be done by December this year. At the same time, we've got to launch a mechanism to protect the rights of Russian citizens and legal entities, especially if these are foreign companies, but the ownership is organized through foreign shell companies.
Okay, so you're seeing Vladimir Putin and other countries around the world, Iran's really good at this as well, coming up with mechanisms to retaliate against the West, to make their own country more resilient to what the West is doing, and really just find ways to circumvent Western sanctions, Western punishments. And so you're seeing this entire parallel international system being created before your eyes. And you should be amazed by it, because this is the end of America. 30 years ago now, they were talking about the world being at the end of history and no country ever being able to compete with the United States. That was 30 years ago. That was within the lifespan of most people. Well, I shouldn't say most people alive. I don't know, because birth rates and everything like that, they were high for a while. But that is within living memory of a significant portion of the population, including this guy. So the United States is able to... It squandered everything, is what I'm trying to say. It had every available advantage to it. Resources, not many competitors nearby. It had a ton of strong allies. And it just dropped the ball. Across the board, it dropped the ball in terms of handling its situation. And from being at the end of history, no close second power that's like on America's tails, to America in a lot of ways being surpassed. And now we are listening to a speech, as an American citizen, and listening to a speech of Vladimir Putin, figure out ways around Western sanctions. And I completely support him in this, because the West has done everything possible to betray other countries, betray organizations, betray individuals. I was just listening to, I think it was the Duran I was listening to. They were talking about how Nigel Farage, a major leader within the United Kingdom, can't open a bank account anymore in the United Kingdom because he's just been depersoned. And it's like, when the West acts like this, not only to foreign companies, foreign nations, but also to its own people, it's like you have to kind of be satisfied to see it declining like this. And so I'm satisfied. We're watching Vladimir Putin talk about circumventing the West, which will inevitably lead to the decline of the West, and I'm loving it. So let's tune in for a little bit longer.
Companies or front companies. You know, sometimes someone wires money from one offshore account to another. The new owners and beneficiaries appear, and then they are protected by more offshore accounts. Frankly, when you look at that, you come to pity them because they put their foot in it, you know. They got trapped. So we have to think how to help them. It might seem these are personal difficulties because it's the consequences of your personal decisions. But the thing is, these are companies and people who work in Russia, and these companies give jobs to our citizens. Investment is produced here. So we have to help the owners of such businesses. We have to give them a place in the Russian jurisdiction. I'll be frank and straightforward. We have to help them. Distinguished colleagues, another key avenue for the supply economy is related to investment growth. We need to ensure a greater inflow of...
Okay, I should talk about this as well. When he's talking about supply and demand economies, he's also talking about the consumers and producers. So supply economies are the producer economies, demand economies are the consumer economies, and the West they are the demand consumer economies. And he's talking about creating a thriving supply producer economy. And we're seeing what that looks like. Supply and demand are more economic terms. I feel like if you learn about it, you'll understand them. But I like to say consumers and producers just because I feel like those are terms that are more in contemporary culture. And so people understand, these are goods that we're consuming. Someone else is producing these goods. You're not always eating things. I mean, you shouldn't eat plastic goods, but you get the gist of consumers versus producers more than supply and demand. I think it's just more obvious. But I just wanted to explain those terms because they are very important terms, because I think that's one of the main distinctions. Like when we talk about the Cold War, we're talking about capitalism and communism. I mean, sort of. There are other major dimensions to look at there. But when we're talking about the multipolar world versus the American-led unipolar world, we're really talking about consumers versus producers, supply versus demand type of thing. And so it's a dichotomy. Or I don't even want to say a dichotomy. It's a continuum that you should be aware of. And I had some comments on this actually too, but people were saying, well, United States does have some manufacturing too. Yeah, I'm talking about the majority of its wealth. What is its orientation? It's a service economy, and yes, it does have some manufacturing, okay? But when we're talking about producing economies, supply economies, that doesn't mean that they don't consume any goods, okay? So you don't have to put that in the comments. This has been an interesting video, and I think this deserves a separate part too, because we've talked about a lot of different things. I want to give your minds some time to mull over what we talked about. I really think the key takeaway here is understanding consumers versus producers, supply versus demand type of thing, because that's hugely important for this ongoing Cold War, which I expect to soon be a hot war. So if you like this video, please actually like it, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to hear more content from me, and we produce content daily, please subscribe to our channel for more content. And thank you for sticking with me, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye.